Hi, this is part 2 for the exercise 1, and when we left off we were just working inside our code editor here, and you can see that we've created a basic HTML page. Let's go ahead and create another page inside of our site folder here. So if I go ahead and I say File New, and I'll go ahead and save this. I'm going to call this next page text formatting .html, and I'm going to make sure that that's saved inside of my site folder. Mine's called My Site. Okay, so just to do some quick review, the first thing at the top of the page is we're going to add a document type of HTML, which makes it an HTML5 doc type. We're going to use our opening and closing HTML tags to define that we're going to be writing HTML code here. And we're going to create the two main sections of any HTML page, which is, one is the head, like so, and the body. So just in the same way that you and I have a head and a body, HTML pages also have a head and a body. And again, the body is the visible area. The head is kind of like the brains. It's sort of not really visible to us, but search engines can see that information in there, and browsers use a lot of the information in there as well. One of the tags we did end up writing in here that you can actually see, not necessarily in the visible body part of the page, but you can see appearing on the browser tab, is the title. So I'll go ahead and give this guy a title of text formatting. I have to remember to close my title tag out there. Okay, and then I'm indenting here to show nesting inside the body. And the first thing I'm going to do is, as you'll recall before, we had written hello world and hello moon. And you'll see that when I bring this guy up in the browser, you'll see, as we saw before, these appear side by side. And as I mentioned, we need to use some HTML elements to space apart, add line breaks, carriage returns, things like that. So if I wanted to indicate, that hello world was a paragraph and hello moon was a paragraph, I actually have a particular element known as the p tag, or the p element here. I'm going to create an opening p tag and a closing p tag. And I can also put one around hello moon. So P stands for paragraph. It's going to actually treat these lines of text as two separate paragraphs. So if I save this file here and I come back to the browser and refresh, you can see that they now in fact are appearing with a full line space in between them. We'll make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So this is indicating a paragraph. Now occasionally we have the need to create all sorts of different types of sizing of fonts, text on our pages. For example, if I go and I view a website like the New York Times, or the startings of articles, you can see that there's also titles for each article, and there's also sort of subheadings or subtitles here that indicate the author, and also another one that indicates the time, how recent this article is. And in addition, you'll actually notice that there's sub-articles that have smaller headings, and other articles, just important and breaking news section, which has larger headings for the articles. So in HTML, it's nice to have the ability to size certain text larger than other text to have importance, and also to suggest to screen readers and to search engines that that the text enclosed within there is particularly a heading. And the way we can do that, I'm just going to write a comment to myself that says headings. The way we can do that is by using a series of tags known as heading tags. And these appear in 6 different levels, starting off with a level 1 heading, which uses the number 1 after the H for heading. And I'll say this is a level 1 heading, like this, /H1. And this, by the way, is the largest of the headings, so I'll make a little comment to myself there. So if I go ahead and I save this particular H1 tag here, if I come back and refresh, you can see that this text appears much larger than the paragraph text below. So additionally, we also have level 2 headings. So this could be used as, perhaps a subheading. And if we refresh, you can see that the level 2 heading again is then slightly smaller. Now I'm going to copy and paste this line a few times by highlighting it. And I'm using the shortcut for copy, which on Mac is Command-C or Control-C on Windows. And I'm using the shortcut for paste, which is here, which is Command-V. So I can say Command-C, Command-V, return, and paste this a few more times here. And we can actually make an H3. And it's really important to close our tags here. We have to make sure that we close our H2 tag there, because if I leave it, it's improper. This would give you a syntax error, what I did here before. So we have to make sure that we close this H1, we close this H2 and this H3. And we also have an H4. I'm just going to go ahead and go through and update the numbers here. We also have an H5. And last but not least, we have an H6, which provides us the smallest of the headings there. So if I save and refresh, we can see the scale here decreasing steadily, even to the point where the level 6 heading is actually smaller than the paragraph text there. So we have headings, and we have the ability to create paragraphs, just like so. Occasionally when we're creating paragraphs, maybe we don't quite yet have that body copy in between. Maybe we're waiting on a copywriter or someone to finish writing the article, and we just simply like some place filler text. We can actually go and grab some place filler text from a site like Lipsum. So whenever a designer needed to fill in some text and there wasn't any available, they could use this as place filler text. So I'll just go ahead and copy some of this place filler text, and I'll paste it then into our layout, like so. So that gives me, this is basically some fake Latin here. It has the look and feel of real text, but it's just providing me place filler there. So if I refresh, you can actually see that a paragraph gives space above and below. And what happens is that if I don't specify a width there, if I'm just putting this in the browser window, you can see that it actually has line wrapping, where it will actually line wrap down to the next line there. We'll talk about how to control this in later sections. Okay, so sometimes I have the need to, instead of creating, this full carriage return here, I'd like to make just one single line break. For example, what if I wanted this word lorem ipsum, these words here, lorem ipsum, to separate, and the rest of this text here on this line to move down and break to one line below. So what I can do is I can use a particular tag known as BR, which stands for break or line break. and it particularly doesn't have a closing BR tag, and that's just to indicate that everything after this should appear on the next line. So if I save that and refresh my code here, you can see that everything after that line break, that BR tag, actually jumps down a line here. And everything before it, which is just lorem ipsum, actually appears on its own line. BR creates a line break. Can just write a comment to ourselves there. Another tag that we can use that is also, is a unique and self-contained tag. It does not have a closing tag. Is something called HR, which creates a horizontal rule. So if I save and refresh, you can see that this creates a line that runs across the bottom of the screen here. We have the ability to enclose code, computer code, inside of these tags. Something like that, for example. So if I go ahead and refresh and save this, you'll see that the browser by default has actually changed the font here, whereas by default, this is Firefox I'm looking at here, is actually choosing to style my text in Times. You can see that it's actually chosen Courier in order to display this code text here. Now if I actually wanted to write code in here, for example, if I wanted to say something like P is for paragraph, something like that. Unfortunately, because I'm using these angle brackets here, even though I'm inside of these code tags, it's not quite the way code tags work. Again, code tags are just meant to be, semantic description that whatever follows in between here is specifically some type of code. So you'll notice that if I actually refresh, what happens is that the browser interprets that particular P for paragraph. If I want to get around this, what I can do is I can use something called HTML ASCII codes. And there's actually a long list of all of these particular ASCII characters you can create. And they always start off with the and symbol, and then you put in a special letter or number code for, in this case, I want to create the less than symbol, which is LT is the actual code for that. And I have to end this with the with the semicolon. Now to make this greater than symbol, so it actually appears in the text but is not processed by the browser, what I can actually do is I can use the and symbol and use GT for greater than and then the semicolon. So if I save that and refresh, you can see that this P for paragraph actually shows up here, and I'm actually able to see those particular angle brackets around the P in the text. So if I actually wanted to write a message out to someone, this is the code that you would use. I would still have to use special ASCII characters. Now if you're interested in seeing a full list of HTML ASCII characters, there's many great resources and lists online, many tables, and these are just an example of some of them. If you have special characters that you'd like to create, there's a number of ways you can do it. For example, something like the copyright symbol or the registration trademark, which you can see here's the copyright symbol. You can say and copy. And if I wanted to do something like particularly the registration mark, I can also use and reg, and that's actually going to display that in the code there. Some other interesting tags that we have to work with here is you can actually create something called pre-formatted text. So for example, before I said I was actually demonstrating that when we put additional spaces in between characters and we save and refresh, you can actually see that those spaces do not appear in the code. So what happens is that the browser again is ignoring that blank space. It only really sees that first space there and uses that for proper word spacing in the text. However, we do have some tags known as pre, or stand for pre-formatted, which create pre-formatted text. And we can do something like this: space, space, space is, return space, space, pre-formatted, return text, period. And you'll see that if I save and refresh this, it actually keeps all of those spaces and line returns inside of the text. This is a possible solution if you want to do a unique formatting for your typography. Sometimes this is used, in poetry for rhythm and tone. Perhaps you're writing a haiku on your web blog and you'd like to have additional sort of formatting, specialized formatting for that text. This is certainly a possibility for that. So we have pre-tag for pre-formatted text, and we have code, which indicates semantically at least, that computer code is contained within those tags. We have HRs to create horizontal rules, BR to create line breaks, Ps for paragraphs, and H1s for headings. Certain tags are what's known as obsolete. So obsolete means you can no longer use them. And deprecated tags you should not use because they may become obsolete soon. So it's kind of a bad idea to use deprecated tags. So these are deprecated. Okay, so an example is you may see B, which means bold text. Okay, we're actually going to be using CSS anyways to style our text in future sections. And of course, currently we're at the mercy of the browser. Here we're seeing the default settings for the browser for all of our text. But these are just some examples of ways people were formatting text. And if you see these around, just know that these are from older versions of HTML and have since gone out of fashion. But we can see that what happens here is we get bold text and italic text from those. Those have since been replaced by strong and EM for emphasized. So you can see that strong and M for emphasized gives you the same effect as B for bold and I for italic. So these would be the sort of the alternatives to using those deprecated tags there. Now in general, aside from using strong and M, we can also use CSS, as we'll see in future sections, which is a good habit to separate your structure from your style, and we can actually then use CSS to style instead of using HTML to do it here. But the reason why I show you these tags is that even if you don't use these, you might see someone else using these, or you might be adjusting someone else's code who's using these. So that's what these are if you ever see them laying around.